My name is, first of all, Kathy Costanzo, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Public Representation.
My name is Michael Kendrick, and I work with the Center for Public Representation. There isn't a point where you're done.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a journey, and every year is different. People remember often where they started, so to speak. But really every year is a new year of growth and development and a chance to make new missteps, but also to build on good decisions that you've made. So we don't really know what people's ultimate potential is, and it's always important to remember we're not done. Even if people seem like they're so much better off than they were a decade ago, that might be still selling them short because we're looking back. We're not really looking to people's ultimate potential. And so I think one has to do both. And because there may be all kinds of hidden capacities and goals, ambitions, needs, wants that are just simply not addressed, even though people are so much better off than they were at an earlier point. So it's sort of the moral of the story is you're not done. There's always next week, there's always next year if we're still here, and there's always ways to benefit and support people no matter where they are at this stage in their life. I could say more about that because it's really not something you just do one day and then you've got it sorted out for the rest of your life. It's an ongoing struggle to get life-giving assumptions into play where they hadn't been and where they're needed. So that's a kind of a search process, but when we give up searching, we give up finding. We don't see the potential, so we don't do the things that optimize or take advantage of positive assumptions about people. But once you realize you can do it, you feel more confident that it can be done. I think it's very hard when you have no experience with changing the world and changing ourselves and other people. So it's very important not to have negative, pessimistic assumptions. And it's not because you're delusional. It's in fact that you're enlightened because when you can see the value of positive assumptions and beliefs and so on, you will get to positive practices and you will get to life-changing differences in people's lives. Well, I think it's very important to recognize that the process of making decisions is always complicated. And so the idea can't be that people sort of are going to be making decisions without difficulties or challenges or whatever, because that would suggest that there's such a thing as perfect decision making where all bases are covered. There's nothing by way of a shortcoming in a decision. But in reality, that's not the standard human beings can live by. Even in our good decisions, there's the upsides and downsides of our decisions. And so this idea that decision-making is sort of without complexity, without dilemmas, without on the one hand, on the other hand, is just delusional. It's sort of like there's a right answer or there's not a right answer. And of course, when people make decisions, they're doing it by weighing on the one hand, on the other hand, looking at many sides of a decision and then ultimately, coming down somewhere in it. And of course, that's why we have things like divorce. It may seem like a good decision, but 2 years, 5 years, 20 years later, it's not a good decision, or in retrospect. So it's important to remember decision-making is perplexing. And so the idea that if you've got the decision-making thing sorted out, you're out of the woods is just not real. Decision-making is always going to be complicated, perplexing, and sort of filled with pitfalls. Some you see, some you don't much later, and so on. It's not a reason not to make decisions. It's a reason to be able to make new decisions if the old decisions are just not proving to be sensible. And so this standard that people with disabilities or any other group have to have perfect decision-making to be in charge of their own life is just totally unreal, because none of us ever will make perfect decisions, and yet we've had a fair amount of control of our own lives. So why take away people's control of their life in the name of making better decisions? It'd be a whole lot better to help them with those decisions, to support them, than to take that away from them, because practice does actually help. It's also remarkable the transition people can go through to in their own learning from where they started to where they end up with decision making. That's quite remarkable. I don't know how many parents have told me the story of their son or daughter's life as decision makers in their own life, and where they started with their son or daughter and where their son or daughter is today, and how pleased and proud they are of their son or daughter, sort of gradually coming into their own to be captain of their own ship. And yes, they, of course, made poor decisions at various points, unlike the rest of us. But despite the poor decisions, the setbacks, this, that, and the other, there's something to be said for people getting a chance to be in the driver's seat. And you can only be in the driver's seat if you're 100% right all the time. None of us are ever going to be in the driver's seat. It's just going to kill driving. There has to be some recognition that we're all learning, and we all have some growth needed in our decisions and how we're living. So I think this is where having a different standard for people with disabilities, which in the name of protection is so misguided. What we should use is the same standard that the rest of the people have, which is they're entitled to their share of, if you like, poor decisions, and that people don't give up on them because they've made poor decisions. They shouldn't give up on themselves. So there's always a way to start over again. And when it's reframed that way, then there's more mercy, of course, but there's actually, people get better at decision making, and there's, you don't worry about the same things with them you would have at an earlier point. And that's called, becoming more mature or growing or developing, or people have different words for it, but we've all witnessed it. So the takeaway would be give people with disabilities a chance to grow and develop. And they will grow and develop, but they will never grow and develop when you're making the decisions for them. They've got to be in the driver's seat and experience the consequences of themselves and their own decisions. And they can learn from life.